Good day everyone, I am Kenneth B. Sidilio and I am from BPED 4E and I am the first reporter in Unit 5, the Historical Development of Art. So the first one is we have in visual arts, the prehistoric period. So when we say prehistoric period, the art history started during the prehistoric era. So the first art came from the Paleolithic era during the Old Stone Age. So we have seven arts during this era. We have rock carvings, pictorial imagery, engravings, stone arrangement, and sculpture. And when we say Paleolithic era was also characterized by the manufacture or small sculpture. Next is the ancient period. In this period, man was considered more advanced than the people during the prehistoric period. And in this period, people already established their written language. And during this period, the known civilizations are Mesopotamian, Egyptian, Grecian, and some of those American. The span of ancient history began with the invention of writing about 3100 BC and lasted for more than 35 centuries. And the third one is medieval period. With it roots medi, meaning middle, and eve, meaning age. Medieval means of Middle Ages, and also Middle Age refer to Dark Age. The Dark Age were between the 5th and 14th century, lasting 900 years. The timeline falls between the fall of the Roman Empire and the Renaissance. It has been called the Dark Ages because many suggest that this period saw little scientific and cultural advancement. The medieval era began around 476 AD. Life in medieval time was harsh, with a limited diet and little comfort. And the fourth one is Renaissance period. The Renaissance was pervert period of European cultural, artistic, political, and economic rebirth following the Middle Ages. Generally described as taking place from the 14th century to the 17th century. The Renaissance promoted the rediscovery of classical philosophy, literature, and art. In the 14th century, Italian artists began to revive the heritage of Greek and Roman antiquity. This is why this period is called the Renaissance, a word which comes from the Italian Rinascito, which was first used in the 14th century. And the fifth one is Mannerism. When we say Mannerism, is an art style and movement of that emerged first in Florence and Rome at the end of the High Renaissance, between 1520 and 16,000 before Baroque style emerged. The popularity of Mannerist art is spread to become an international artistic style. The Mannerism launched a highly imaginative period in art following the climax of perfection that naturalistic painting had reached in Renaissance Italy.
Good day, I'm Laika Meiti Marso from BPED 4E. So here is the continuation of Unit 5 Visual Arts. So first one is the Baroque period. So the yielded ornate extreme visual arts and architecture are known as the Baroque period. So this period is distinguished by richness and grandeur, punctuated by an interest in widening the human intellect and discovery. So art during the Baroque period portrayed realism and movement. This art is able to express very intense emotion and drama. So next one is the Rococo period. This period encompasses decorative arts, architecture, painting, and sculpture. This period is characterized by elegance and lightness. focuses on the use of asymmetrical design, natural forms, and subtle colors. So the Rococo art movement originated from Paris. Art from this period is similar to Baroque's emphasis to ornamentation, but it expressed playfulness and lightness compared to Baroque art's serious style. So next one is the Neoclassicism. So the Neoclassical period came from the elements of the classical age. The artworks that were discovered from the civilization of Athens and Naples reignited the passion for the things in the past. So, and the artists strove to recreate the works of ancient art. So, the Neoclassicism was born due to discoveries of historical civilization and artwork. This visual art is clear, simplistic, and symmetric as opposed to Baroque and Rococo. So next one is the Romanticism. This period embodied a large range of disciplines, from painting to literature to music. So Romanticism presents the ideas that reject order, rationality, and harmony, which were embraced during the classical art and Neoclassicism. So artists during this period emphasized the imagination and individual. So in the period of Romanticism, art was distinguished to be strange but imaginative. They are focused in expressing emotion through landscape, mystery, and unpredictability. So the last one is the contemporary art. So the beginning of contemporary art is dated during the 1970s. So some of the contemporary art depicts artworks that are related to skepticism, philosophical critics, and irony. Some are answers to societal issues that like feminist art and street art, or known as the graffiti-like art. So the contemporary art is the art from the 1970s up to present. The methods and materials used for each art vary from artist to artist. Some make sure to use the technology while some use uncommon objects to produce their art. More artists are used their art to express thoughts or emotions to issues of today through public display of graphical arts.
Good day everyone, I am Trish Nicola F. Constantino from BPED 4E. So to continue the discussion, let's talk about music. So first, what is music? Music is generally defined as the art of arranging sound to create some combination of forms, harmony, melody, rhythm, or otherwise expressive content. Exact definition of music vary considerably around the world, though it is aspects of all human societies or a cultural universal. Now let's proceed to music prehistorical period. So the oldest known song dates back 4,000 years to the ancient period. During this period, men uses their hands, voices, and feet to imitate the noises around them. So they develop new rhythms and sounds over time by utilizing tools or beating sticks against the rocks and trees. So they also discovered that they can create sounds with their mouths through humming, whistling, and singing. So they started repeating those tones and sounds patterns. That is known as pattern songs. When they create pattern songs, they also began to make special tools to make sounds, and that's what we call now instruments. Now let's proceed to medieval period. Because medieval period was centered on Christianity, songs throughout this time period were about God and worship. There are simply one melody line and no backing music. This is also known as monopoly. Gregorian chants are monopolic tunes named after Pope Gregory, the leader of Christian church during the medieval period. Monopoly was created during the late stages of the medieval period. Monopoly is two melodic lines heard at the same time and it is sung or played in harmony. So here is the some example of medieval song. So first is Boy Porter. Boy Porter was one of the most famous songs in late medieval period. And second is Green Sleeves. Green Sleeves is a popular English folk song composed during the 16th century. So now let's proceed to Renaissance period. So this is recognized as the time when there was a significant change in music. During this time, musicians have more freedom to express themselves through music and arts. Despite this, church or sacred music was the most popular music of the period. During the Renaissance period, new instruments such as the lute and clavichord were introduced and quickly became popular. When printing technology and advanced period this time, artists were able to produce music and make it available to broad audience. So the most popular Renaissance music was the Latin Mass. It is perhaps the most important type of music from Renaissance period. Now let's proceed to Baroque music. So Baroque music was used to describe a style that followed the Renaissance in European music. It means strange or excessive. During this time, music became more complex and difficult. The song comprises many melodies that can be harmonized or conflict with one another. During this period, composers used soft, loud, slow, and quick tones to help the listeners grasp the late or experience the emotion. The orchestra is a group or assembles of musical instrument that performs music together. Opera is one story with drama representation that is set of music. The most prominent musician during the time were Vivaldi, the composer of the Four Season Concertos, and J.S. Bach. A great example of the Baroque music is the Toccata and Fugue in D minor, BWV 665. It is written by Jonathan Sebastian Bach 300 years ago.
Now let's proceed to classical period. Musicologists generally define the classical period of music as ranging from 1730 to 1820. Musicologists and casual music fans use the general term classical music to describe the work of composers ranging from J.S. Bach to Igor Stravinsky to Philip Glass. The classical period, though, is a specific era in music history that spanned much of the 18th and 19th centuries. Classical period composers and performers came from Europe, but it did not take long for the music to find its way to European colonies around the globe. Many composers and musicians were based in the Austrian capital of Vienna, which was the musical center of Europe during the time period. Now let's talk about the Romantic period. The Romantic period of classical music lasts for much of the 19th century. It bridged the gap between the classical era music of Mozart and Haydn and the music of the 20th century. Romantic era music contributes heavily to today's symphony orchestras. The Romantic period spanning from around 1820 to 1910 contains some of the most beloved music from the classical music tradition. A lot of music from this time period is probably already familiar to us due to its frequent use in television shows, commercials, movies, and some videos in internet. The highly expressive nature of romantic music tends to resonate with the emotional sensibilities of the modern world, and it is the trait perhaps above all the others that has contributed to its lasting appeal. For the last, we have modern period. The modern period began in 1900s and continues through the present day. Music since developed quickly in the 20th century and many large changes came about. The most radical change was probably that music now could be experienced without any performers present. The 20th century was the first century of recorded music. The modern era has been a period of turbulent change in musical style and taste. Many modern art music composers have explored untraditional sounds and have based their music on rhythm, texture, and tone color instead of the more traditional aspects of melody and harmony. And that's all our report. Thank you for listening and God bless.